Okay, I'm going to go ahead and expand on the last video and continue to discuss these last 5 questions for this learning target about maintaining homeostasis. So homeostatic mechanisms reflect both common ancestry and divergence due to adaptation in different environments. So we're bringing back in a lot of these concepts from Learning Target 1 where we looked at all of these conserved processes. Now we're going to be able to explain them. So this should look familiar from Learning Target 2C where we were looking at positive and negative feedback mechanisms. This is representing that feedback loop with the stimulus, the receptor, the control center, the effector, and then the response. Homeostatic mechanisms are physiological processes that help regulate an organism's internal conditions. And the continuity of these mechanisms between species supports the idea of a common ancestor. Because there are differences, now it's more than likely a result of having lived in such diverse environmental conditions. But that core stays the same, which is giving us evidence of the common ancestor. So organisms have various systems so this is one example of a conserved control system. Organisms have various systems for obtaining nutrients and eliminating waste. Those mechanisms include gas exchange in plants, digestive mechanisms, respiratory systems, and production and elimination of nitrogenous waste. In plants, gas exchange occurs through the stomata, which is what we are observing here, these lighter parts, which are openings on the leaves. And you should have remembered this from one group that did the plant's response to water limitation during our gallery walk. But the stomata have the ability to open and close depending on what kind of environment they're in. And that's going to allow the control of gas exchange and water loss. So the role of gas exchange through stomata is to eliminate oxygen waste and take in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. And opening and closing is controlled by the guard cells here, which react to the water availability in the soil. In aquatic plants, gas exchange occurs by diffusion. Oxygen from photosynthesis actually will diffuse out of plant tissues, while carbon dioxide will diffuse inwards. Aquatic plants facilitate this diffusion by having really thin leaves with a waxy layer. And unlike terrestrial plants, their gas exchange is not dependent on the need to conserve water, obviously. So in animals, there are various digestive mechanisms for taking in nutrients and eliminating wastes. One example is amoeba and protozoa use food vacuoles to take in food by endocytosis, which remember is the process of having that membrane form around a food molecule and actually intaking that into the cell. Material within the food vacuole is broken down and digested. After nutrients are absorbed, waste is released into the environment through exocytosis. So that's one conserved process. The primary digestive organ of jellyfish and flatworms is the gastrovascular cavity. The cavity has one opening through which food enters and waste leaves. Inside the organism, the cavity can branch into several canals to help deliver nutrients and carry waste out. Some animals have a one-way digestive system with a mouth and anus, and food travels through the alimentary canal where it's digested and nutrients are absorbed, and then waste leaves through the anus. So like plants, aquatic and terrestrial animals have mechanisms for gas exchange through respiratory systems. In terrestrial animals, gas exchange occurs within the lungs. Inside animal lungs, there are small sacs called the alveoli, which are actually where that site of gas exchange occurs, and they provide a large surface area and small distance over which gases can diffuse. So the tissue here is so thin that the gas exchange is actually able to diffuse right through. So the entire inside of the lungs would be filled with this tree branch-like structure. Respiratory system of aquatic animals uses gills to extract oxygen from water when it flows over them. Carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood out into the environment. Animals have mechanisms for producing and eliminating nitrogenous waste. The waste results from protein and amino acid breakdown and must be excreted. This includes urea, uric acid, and ammonia. So terrestrial animals excrete nitrogenous waste in different forms. Mammals produce urea, which is excreted through urine, whereas birds, reptiles, and some invertebrates produce uric acid. Aquatic animals tend to release waste in the form of ammonia, and the formation of ammonia requires ATP and a large amount of water to dilute it out of the body system. So common ancestry is supported by similarities in the control systems of microbes, plants, and animals. Some examples of this are the excretory system, osmoregulation, circulatory system, and thermoregulation. The role of the excretory system is to remove waste from the blood and regulate internal water concentrations. Flatworms have two tubular organs that excrete waste. Cells at the edges of the tubules propel water and waste out of the body. Earthworms have nephridia, which are found in almost every body segment. As fluids pass through it, nutrients are absorbed and carried by capillaries, while fluid-containing waste is excreted. Earthworms have nephridia, which are found in almost every body segment. As fluids pass through, nutrients are absorbed and carried by capillaries, while fluid-containing waste is excreted. Invertebrates, kidneys are responsible for filtering waste from the blood. Nutrients can also be reabsorbed before waste is excreted. The excretory system of the flatworm, earthworm, and vertebrates vary in structure. However, they all involve the filtration of waste and fluids and the reabsorption of materials before excretion. Osmoregulation is the maintenance of internal osmotic pressure by regulating salt and water concentrations. We obviously looked at the stomata a minute ago. Aquatic plants have the ability to diffuse, to let water diffuse across the leaf surfaces. All right, the circulatory system. Fish have a two-chambered heart that pumps blood in a single circuit through the body. Oxygen is absorbed as it passes through the gills. And most amphibians have actually a three-chambered heart that pumps through two circuits. To the lungs, where gas exchange to the environment occurs, and then to the body, where that oxygen is going to diffuse out. Mammals have a four-chambered heart that blood pumps through two circuits to the lungs and body. The right side of the heart receives the deoxygenated blood. It's going to be over here. And the left side is going to receive the oxygenated blood from the lungs. So the blood is going to enter here, go into the right atrium, right ventricle, out to the lungs where it's going to be oxygenated. Remember, that's where we have the small structures, the alveoli, where the actual gas exchange is going to occur. It's going to enter back into the heart, into the left atrium, the left ventricle, and then it's going to be pumped out to the body. So despite having varying structure, the circulatory system serves the same purpose in all three of these types of organisms. So essentially what this slideshow is getting at is, let's find those lists. Here we go. Even though gas exchange, digestion, respiratory systems, and elimination of waste, water control, even though those are done in extremely different ways in all of these organisms, the fact that they all do them and have some sort of resemblance and have the same goal in mind is what gives us our evidence for having conserved control systems.